Amy, talk to us about what happened to the Riveter and how co-working space as a business is evolving.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Emily. In the spring of 2020, so nearly a year ago, we had to make a very quick decision whether to keep our spaces open or close them. We were in 6 different states at the time, but I wanted to make a decision that would resonate for all of the safety of my members and employees. And so we decided to shut our spaces across the country and to stop charging our members because we knew that small businesses, particularly women-owned businesses, were being hit really hard by the pandemic. And so from that, we've exited the co-working space for now. But we still really believe in the future of in real life meeting and getting together, and that there's a big opportunity for co-working as we move forward.
Why do you think that there's still going to be an interest in co-working in a new normal, whatever that new normal looks like?
Whatever it does look like, right? Well, I think that work has changed forever. I think that companies that were very reluctant to allow their employees to live in other cities and work remotely have been forced into this new paradigm and have seen that it really works. I also think that we're in an interesting economy. This isn't a recession, this is a virus economy. And I don't think we really know what that means and what recovery will look like. So I'm a strong believer that as we move forward past the pandemic, companies will really look to freelancers in a new way as they can lever up and lever down whatever they need as we move forward. And so through that, you'll see a lot of people who are working in different ways, who are working in different spaces. And people who aren't in that office culture, they still need community. They still want to be around people. And as the mother of 4 girls, and I know, Emily, you're the mother of 4 as well, it's awfully hard to work at home. So I think that co-working spaces will see a resurgence.
So you've been talking about how hard the pandemic has been on women. We've heard the same from Sheryl Sandberg. I think she calls it a double shift that people like you and I are doing. It's been hard for everyone, to be fair, but how are women who work faring now that we're almost a year into this?
I mean, the numbers are horrible, Emily, right? We've all seen them. We've seen that 3 million women have exited the full-time workforce since the beginning of the pandemic, and that's pretty stunning. To me, I see it as a symptom of problems that have existed for decades and decades, right? We know that women are paid less than men still. We know that women with kids are paid less than women without kids. And so it follows often that those women are seen as the first to let go because they have other responsibilities. We still see parenting as primarily falling on the women's shoulder in this country. And so I'm a big believer that we need to create solutions that work for all parents and that kind of drive toward that solution where it isn't just a women's problem.
Now, there's a new, small movement behind this idea that moms who stay at home should be paid. You've actually pushed back on that quite hard. As a mom yourself, why?
I did. So my podcast co-host and I, Samantha Edis, wrote an op-ed in Newsweek last week talking about our thoughts on the Marshall Plan for moms. Look, I think any conversation that puts moms at the forefront is important because, like I just mentioned, women are getting crushed by the pandemic. But I think that any solution that hits only for mothers and for women kind of dives deeper into so many of the systemic problems that we see rather than creating a solution that makes change for women. So what we'd like to see is change that allows women to get back to work. When you look at the Marshall Plan during World War II, it was to put European countries back to work. And what we need to do here is find a way to get everybody back in the workplace who wants to work. So I think things like childcare tax credits or direct payments for childcare are great. And that's a win-win for women because most childcare providers are women, many of them women of color. And so it puts them back to work too.
So if you think that co-working will see a resurgence post-pandemic, for women and everyone else, does that mean you're optimistic about a company like WeWork, which had its stumbles going into the pandemic, but obviously got hit hard by the pandemic itself?
I think it's interesting, right? I can't really speak exactly to WeWork's business plan, but I look right now to companies like Industrious and companies like the Riveter, the way we treated space. So Industrious has an interesting model that's more of a revenue partnership with their landlords. They don't take on the risk and the liability, and they share in the revenue. I think spaces like the Riveter will resurge because commercial real estate will be different. There's going to be so many empty spaces as companies downsize their footprint. And so we need to think, how can we use those spaces? And I think that open spaces will be really important. Companies will still gather for meetings and events and all hands, although they might not have those one-by-one offices. And so I think there's a big opportunity for kind of even more diverse and new models out there as we move forward.
So Mark Zuckerberg recently popped into a clubhouse, and he wasn't there for very long, but he did say he thinks that by the end of the decade, 50% of Facebook employees will work from home. What do you think the work office space landscape looks like a decade from now?
I probably don't agree with Mark Zuckerberg very much, but I do here. I think that we will see a complete shift, that the changes that the pandemic has brought will really stay with us. And I also will say that I think that does open the door for a lot of different people. It allows people to live in cities that are affordable for them and for their families and work for really big companies like Facebook, which was something that was unattainable before the pandemic in many ways. I also think that, for parents, getting rid of the commute opens up a lot of doors. So I think there's a big opportunity there to kind of level the playing field in a way that we haven't seen before.